Do you ever find yourself sitting in silence, wondering why your children, whom you raised with endless love and sacrifice, seem so distant now? You devoted your life to them, providing, nurturing, guiding, and now they barely call or visit. It feels like a deep wound, one that makes you question everything. Did I do something wrong? Do they even care? The truth is, life changes, people get busy, and relationships evolve in ways we often don't expect. But here's the crucial part. Your worth is not defined by how often your children call you or acknowledge you. Reacting with sadness, anger, or resentment won't bring them closer. In fact, it may push them even further away. But there is another way, one that leads to peace, dignity, and even a stronger connection with your children. In today's discussion, I will share 8 powerful insights that can transform the way you navigate this stage of life. These are not just theoretical ideas, but practical, time-tested wisdom that many elderly parents have used to regain their inner peace and even rekindle relationships with their children. If you've been feeling overlooked or unappreciated, stay with me. This journey will open your eyes to a new perspective, one that leads to strength, self-respect, and even joy in unexpected places. Don't react in anger. Pause and reflect. When we feel disrespected by our children, the emotional wound cuts deep. The instinctive response is often to lash out, to demand answers, to express hurt, to make them understand what they have done. However, reacting in anger usually drives them further away, worsening the situation instead of repairing it. Consider the story of Mr. Tanaka, a retired school teacher in his 70s. His children rarely visited him, and when they did, their conversations were brief and distant. One day, after yet another unanswered phone call, frustration boiled within him. He wanted to call his son and demand, "Do you even care about me anymore?" But something stopped him. Instead of letting his emotions dictate his response, he took a quiet walk in the park near his home. As he walked, memories flooded in. His years as a devoted teacher, the sacrifices he made for his family, the moments of joy he shared with his children when they were young. Then he had a realization. His worth was not defined by whether or not his children called him. His value came from the life he had built and the kindness he had given to others. This moment of clarity helped him recognize that his dignity wasn't something his children could take away. Emotional reactions rarely lead to positive outcomes. Instead of lashing out, take a moment to breathe, reflect, and remind yourself of your own value. By approaching the situation with a clear mind, you strengthen your self-worth and improve the chances of reconnecting with your children in a meaningful way. When emotions like anger or disappointment arise, they stem from an expectation that has not been met. The human mind naturally seeks validation and reciprocation, especially from loved ones. However, wisdom teaches us that true peace does not come from the outside world, it comes from within. Anger is often the result of unfulfilled desires. If we expect our children to visit us, call us, or show appreciation in a particular way, we create an emotional dependency on their actions. When those expectations are not met, frustration builds up. But the hard truth is, we cannot control the actions of others, only our own reactions. The moment we let go of expectations, we free ourselves from unnecessary suffering. Instead of seeing a lack of communication as a personal failure or disrespect, we can reframe it as a reflection of our children's own struggles, responsibilities, and distractions. By shifting our perspective, we reduce emotional pain and increase self-awareness. Lashing out often creates more distance. Words spoken in anger can linger in the hearts of others, creating barriers instead of bridges. Instead of demanding, "Why don't you visit? Why don't you call?" Try practicing silence and self-reflection. Mr. Tanaka's walk in the park wasn't just a physical activity, it was a moment of mindful detachment. Walking, breathing, and observing nature gave him the mental space to see beyond his immediate pain. It allowed him to recognize that his identity wasn't dependent on his children's attention, but on the meaningful life he had already built. A helpful exercise to practice detachment is mindfulness meditation. Whenever you feel overwhelmed with emotions, sit quietly and observe your thoughts without judgment. Acknowledge your pain, but do not let it consume you. Instead of focusing on what you lack in your relationship with your children, shift your focus to what you have cultivated in your own life, your wisdom, resilience, and kindness. Another key aspect of pausing and reflecting is understanding your children's perspective. Life's responsibilities, stress, and personal struggles may shape their behavior in ways that are not directly related to you. Perhaps they are dealing with work pressures, financial struggles, or relationship difficulties. Maybe they assume that since you seem independent, you don't need them as much. They might also be navigating their own emotions about aging parents and not know how to express their love properly. By taking a step back and seeing the broader picture, you allow yourself to approach them with empathy rather than resentment. This change in energy can subtly transform the dynamic between you and your children. Ultimately, embracing this practice brings personal liberation. It allows you to take control of your emotional well-being without relying on external validation. When your children witness this transformation, they may naturally feel drawn back to you, not out of obligation, but out of admiration for your strength and wisdom. Instead of saying, "Why don't you care about me?" try saying, "I understand you're busy, but I cherish the moments we do share." Instead of feeling abandoned, remind yourself, "I have lived a meaningful life, and I continue to create joy for myself." This shift is not about suppressing emotions, but mastering them. It's about transforming the pain of being ignored into an opportunity for personal growth. When emotions rise, step away from the situation before responding. Engage in a grounding activity, take a walk, practice deep breathing, or listen to calming music. Reflect on your expectations and ask yourself if your frustration is rooted in unmet expectations. Instead of focusing on lack, focus on what you have cultivated in life. Acknowledge your wisdom and resilience. And if you reach out to your children, do so from a place of love, not resentment. By following these steps, you reclaim your inner peace, strengthen your sense of self-worth, and, most importantly, set an example of emotional strength that your children may one day seek to emulate. This deeper exploration of Insight 1 is just the beginning. Next, we will discuss how rebuilding your own life and finding a new purpose can further transform your experience. Stay with me as we continue this journey of wisdom, self-discovery, and inner peace. Rebuild your own life, find new purpose. When children become distant, many parents fall into a state of waiting for a call, waiting for a visit, waiting for some sign that they still matter. But this waiting can become a prison of sadness and resentment. Instead of waiting, the best thing you can do is shift your focus back to yourself and rebuild your own life with a new sense of purpose. Take the story of Mrs. Elena, a widow in her late 60s. After her husband's passing, her children visited less frequently, their calls became shorter, and eventually they stopped altogether. At first, she felt devastated. She spent days sitting by the phone, waiting. But one morning, she decided enough was enough. She picked up a packet of seeds from her cupboard and went out to her garden. At first, it was just a small project planting flowers, tending to vegetables. But soon, gardening became her passion. She joined a local gardening club, made new friends, and even began sharing her produce with neighbors. Her energy shifted. She was happier, more active, more connected to the world around her. As time went on, she started exploring other activities, learning a new language, joining a book club, and even volunteering at a local charity. Each of these pursuits filled her with purpose and deepened her sense of fulfillment. Her newfound joy became contagious, radiating positivity to everyone around her. Then something unexpected happened. One day her daughter called, seemingly out of the blue. "Mom, I've been thinking about you lately. You sound so happy these days. What's your secret?" That conversation led to more calls, more visits, and deeper connections. A fulfilled parent is harder to ignore. When your life has meaning, people, including your children, will naturally be drawn to you. So instead of waiting, invest in yourself. Take up a hobby, join a local group, volunteer in your community. The happiness you cultivate within yourself will not only bring you peace, it may also draw your children back into your life. It is important to recognize that self-worth does not diminish with age. The problem often lies in how we perceive our own importance once our children have grown up and created lives of their own. Many parents fall into the trap of defining their worth based on their children's attention. But life offers infinite possibilities beyond parental identity. When you rediscover yourself, you become a source of light, not just for your family, but for your community as well. Start by asking yourself, what have I always wanted to do? What passions did I set aside while raising my children? Many parents, once free of their past responsibilities, find joy in activities they never had time for: painting, traveling, writing, or learning a new skill. Some even find new careers or roles as mentors, guiding younger generations and sharing their accumulated wisdom. The key is to view this stage of life not as an ending, but as a rebirth into something new and meaningful. Another powerful approach is to form new relationships. Surrounding yourself with people who share your interests or values can fill the emotional gap left by your children's absence. Social engagement is one of the most effective ways to combat loneliness and rekindle enthusiasm for life. Many elderly individuals find immense happiness by fostering friendships, participating in group activities, or simply engaging with their local community. It is natural to miss your children, but constantly dwelling on their absence will only deepen feelings of sadness. Instead of longing for what once was, embrace what can be. Imagine your children visiting not out of obligation, but because they admire the joy and fulfillment they see in you. When you radiate happiness and independence, you create an atmosphere of warmth that naturally draws others in, including your children. Letting go of the need for validation from your children does not mean you love them any less. It simply means you have learned to love yourself more. The more you invest in your own well-being, the stronger your presence becomes, not only in their lives, but in the world around you. By finding new passions, setting new goals, and embracing life's endless opportunities, you teach by example. You show your children that aging is not about fading into the background, but about stepping forward with renewed purpose. By making yourself the center of your happiness rather than waiting for others, you create a life filled with joy and independence. And in doing so, you teach your children a valuable lesson. Happiness comes from within, and self-worth is built, not given. This transformation does not happen overnight, but the first step is the most important one. The day you decide to stop waiting and start living is the day your life takes a new direction, one that is full of possibilities, love, and newfound freedom. And who knows, in the process of finding yourself, you may just inspire your children to come back to you, not because they feel they have to, but because they genuinely want to. Communicate your feelings wisely. When our children become distant, the temptation is to confront them with frustration. Why don't you ever call me? Don't you care about me anymore? But harsh words only create more distance. Instead of blaming them, express your emotions in a way that invites connection. Consider the story of Mr. Peterson, a retired carpenter who hadn't heard from his son, James, in months. Every day he would sit by the window, hoping to see his son pull into the driveway. The silence hurt deeply, and he often thought about calling James to demand answers. But instead of letting his frustration take over, he chose a different approach. He sat down at his kitchen table and wrote a heartfelt letter. "James, I've been thinking about you a lot lately. I miss our conversations. I miss hearing about your life. I just want you to know that I'm always here and I'm proud of you, no matter what." A few days later, the phone rang. It was James. The letter had touched him deeply. He admitted that work and family had kept him busy, but he hadn't realized how much his father missed him. That one letter reopened the door to regular conversations and weekend visits. Instead of blaming, express your emotions gently. Use phrases like, "I miss our time together," or "I've been thinking about you," rather than accusations. Words have the power to heal or hurt, and when chosen wisely, they can lead to understanding and reconnection. Beyond written communication, nonverbal cues can also have a powerful impact. A warm smile, a gentle touch on the shoulder, or a compassionate look can express more than words ever could. Sometimes your children may not realize the depth of your feelings simply because they are caught up in their own struggles. A simple gesture of kindness or a sincere, non-confrontational expression of love can remind them of the bond you share. Another approach is to find moments of shared experience. If conversations feel strained, consider engaging in activities that once brought you closer, watching an old movie together, cooking a favorite meal, or taking a walk. Sometimes connection is rebuilt not through words, but through moments of shared presence. These small, seemingly insignificant interactions can have a profound impact on rekindling relationships. Patience is key. If your child does not respond immediately, do not take it as rejection. People process emotions in different ways, and they may need time to reflect on your words. Keep the lines of communication open, and most importantly, lead with love rather than expectation. Over time, as they see your genuine desire for connection, they may start responding in ways you never expected. It is also important to remember that communication is a two-way street. Instead of focusing only on what you are missing, ask yourself, am I creating an environment where my child feels comfortable opening up? Sometimes children distance themselves not out of disregard, but because they fear judgment, pressure, or conflict. Creating a space of understanding where they feel safe to express themselves without fear of guilt or expectations can make all the difference. A shift in approach can turn confrontation into conversation. Instead of saying, "Why don't you ever call me?" Try saying, "I love hearing from you, and I always enjoy catching up." Instead of asking, "Do you even care about me anymore?" Try saying, "I miss you, and I hope we can spend more time together." Small shifts in language can make a world of difference in how your message is received. Another valuable technique is active listening. When your children do talk to you, listen without interrupting, correcting, or offering advice unless they ask. Sometimes people just want to be heard. By giving them your full attention and making them feel truly listened to, you create a deeper bond and encourage more open dialogue in the future. Lastly, remind yourself that love is not measured by frequency of calls or visits, but by the depth of connection when you do communicate. Even if your children are busy, even if they don't reach out as often as you'd like, nurturing a positive and supportive relationship when you do interact will strengthen your bond over time. By choosing your words carefully, being patient, and fostering an atmosphere of warmth rather than demand, you create an environment where communication can thrive. And sometimes the simplest message, "I love you, and I'm always here," can be the one that changes everything. At the end of the day, the way you handle being ignored or disrespected is not about your children, it's about you. Your response shapes your experience and determines whether you live in pain or peace. By choosing patience over anger, purpose over waiting, and wisdom over frustration, you reclaim your own dignity. And here's the surprising part. When you make peace with yourself, when you live a fulfilling and self-sufficient life, your children will take notice. They may not return immediately, but over time, they will see the strength, love, and wisdom you embody. So don't wait for them to change. You be the change. Because when you cultivate inner peace, the world around you shifts in ways you never expected. If you found value in this, let me know in the comments. And remember, you are worthy of respect, love, and happiness, no matter what others do. Stay strong, stay wise, and most of all, stay true to yourself.